that Brian Sudfield is based on a real-life event. I know it's weird, but yeah, he's finally going to discuss it tonight, so it's going to be a lot of fun. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Top 5 Saturdays Live with me, Chase Lee, one of your co-hosts, and the other co-host being Brian Sudfield. On this week's episode, Detroit is coming out, and it's based on the 60s riots in Detroit over police racial issues, and we figured we'd take a look at our top 5 movies based on real-life events. Should be a lot of fun. What are Brian and I going to put on our list? Well, you're going to have to sit down, relax, and find out. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Top 5 Saturdays Live with me, Chase Lee, and my co-host,
Brian Sudfield.
That's fucking right. You know, it never ceases to amaze me, like, how close, like, Brian gets to that microphone. Like, you figure he'd be tonguing it by now. But anyways, welcome to the podcast where we talk about movies that come out on Friday, and we'll make a top 5 list. According to that, we will pick one out of obscurity, and we will honor it, put it on a fucking pedestal, and we will, you know, maybe pick like an actor, actress, director, what have you, and we will make our top 5 lists. And the cool thing about this show is that we don't know each other's list, and this is live, so we have no idea what the hell's going to come out of our mouth, so it's going to be quite an interesting show indeed. Before we get into our topic, Brian, how are we doing this week?
This week is pretty fascinating. You know, I got to hang out with the girlfriend. I spent today watching the new season of Wet Hot American Summer. It was okay. Sorry to disappoint all of you fanatics of the Wet Hot franchise. It's been pretty hot here in New Jersey. It rained.
Shut up! I don't want to fucking hear it. You know where I live. You fucking know where I live, and you know that I walk. So I don't want to hear it, Brian Sudfield.
All right, okay. I just wanted to say it was hot. That's all.
Sure,
that's all I wanted to say. I
sure
never talk about the weather. You always talk about it, and now it's my turn to talk about it. Also, on Wednesday, we got potentially the worst rain in New Jersey within the last, I would say, 3 years. So, you know, yeah, floods. Hell yeah. But other than that, everything is normal. How are you, Chase?
Well, Brian, you just kind of living your college summer days, having a girlfriend, just having a fun time. I live vicariously through you. Just let you know that. So, you know, you guys already know, like, what's happened in the past few months. You know, no car, loss of girlfriend, you know, hospital stay with stacked medical bills. You know the gist, right? But there is some hope. There is some hope. You know, I have a potential job opportunity that might help me with some debt. And then, of course, I'm going to see a movie next Monday with someone that, you know, some woman that I find attractive. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, but it'll be nice to actually talk to someone and actually go out with a different woman, Brian, than your ex. So this is the first time I've done this in like a year. So I'm nervous as shit. Brian, do you have any advice for me?
No, I'm not good. The girl that I'm dating right now is like my first real girlfriend. So, you know, I don't really have any advice. Just, you know, be you. Hopefully she likes you. Don't get too crazy. See, I'm acting like a dad right now, and I don't want to be, but
which is funny because I'm like 100 years older than you. Now, Brian, let's put this in perspective. Now, we're meeting as friends, but I know that there's like an attraction there, and I don't know what's going to happen. That's all I'm going to say. Anything can happen. Like, that's the beauty of it. It's just like I'm going with the flow, Brian. That's what I need to kind of realize as I'm like dating other people. Just go with the flow, my friend. That's all you need to do in life.
Just gotta be yourself and just go with the flow. Just let things happen, see where things go. It may not be super pretty at first, but believe me, it'll probably get much better. Just, you gotta hope for the best. You just gotta hope for the goddamn best.
That is correct, and she's probably listening right now, so she's probably freaking the fuck out. Whatever. So, hey, listen, I don't even care at this point. Anyways, Brian, I'm excited to do another episode. That's the cool thing about this show is that we get to talk to you guys about just, you know, just movies, and we get to explain them to you guys. So, Brian, what are we doing this week?
This week, Catherine Bigelow's newest film, Detroit, hits theaters, and we are going to be. And that film. Oh wait, hold on. Let me reiterate. So that film focuses on the 1967 riots in Detroit, of course. So we are going to be doing our top 5 films based on true stories.
Okay, so I was telling Brian before we started record that there's a lot of movies that are loosely based on true stories and whatever. I decided to go more based on true events. So I actually pinpointed an event and picked a movie based around that event that happened during a duration of actual human history. So that's the route I decided to go because I wanted to make it a little bit more niche for you guys because there's a lot of based on true stories out there. So if they are done right, they are done wonderfully, and they can be really compelling, or they can turn out to be complete dog shit, and then you just like wonder why you just watched it. But also this list is going to consist of a lot of millennial picks. I'm sorry, I could put a lot of 80s, 90s, and 70s films, but once again, I decided to go with events, not people, not specific people, events. So, I could have put like a Raging Bull. That's based on true stories. That's based on a real boxing event. But it's based on a person. We've already talked about it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I wanted to choose different movies for you guys. I wanted to choose kind of a different spectrum because I don't want our list to get stale after a while. I want them to be fresh, continuously fresh. So that's the route I decided to go, Brian. How did you determine how you kind of whittled it down? Because there's a lot of them out there, and when you think of a based on a true story, let's admit it. Does your eyes roll a little bit, and you're like, oh god, of course, another one, or
of course,
do you get slightly excited depending on the story?
Well, see, it always depends on the storyline and everything that goes around it, whether it be who's in it, who's directing it, who's writing it, what have you. See, for me, I understand why you're going with true events more than stories. I have 3 movies. I mean, 2 of them are based on events. Not necessarily like a riot of sorts, but one of them involves a murder. One of them involves rescuing. One of them involves a foundation of a company. Spoiler, oops. And then 2 of them are like focused on people or a particular person. So as long as there's a lot of true aspects to it, where it's not like, oh, it's loosely based on a true story, as long as it's mostly based, that's all that matters to me.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about based on true stories nowadays. You want to find the one movie that has about 90% accuracy and like 10% fiction, which is understandable. You're not going to find any Hollywood movie out there that's going to be 100% fact. They're always going to skew something to fit the narrative of the film. That's just the way it's always going to go. So, I chose basically, I decided to go the Detroit route, where it's like that's the movie we're honoring. So I was like, Detroit is about the Detroit riots. That was a specific event in the late '60s. So that's how I kind of judge mine. But that's okay though. That just makes it even harder. That means you will never fucking guess anything on my list, and I will never guess anything on your list. So that's going to be a joy to hear the reveals. And speaking of the reveals, let's do it. So, Brian, what is your number 5 favorite film based on a true story of all time so far? Because, let's face it, there's hundreds of them out there.
Yeah, my number 5, I'm going with this is based on the FBI investigations of a murder case in 1964 from Mississippi in a movie called Mississippi Burning. This comes from director Alan Parker. It came out in 1988. It was a huge critical success. Now, for people who don't know who Alan Parker is, this is the same guy who's directed numerous movies. He's directed Midnight Express, The Commitments. He directed Pink Floyd The Wall. He directed Fame, Bugsy Malone. His one of his recent films was The Life of David Gale, starring Kevin Spacey. This guy is a very, very, very versatile filmmaker. He's done a lot of great stuff, and he is considered a huge pioneer in both British and American cinema. Mississippi Burning, I remember watching this in my U.S. history class sophomore year of high school. For people who don't know what this movie is, like I said, it's following these murders of these 3 guys. from Mississippi. It stars Gene Hackman and William Dafoe. They go to Jessup County, Mississippi, which is apparently a fictional county, but this was a real case, and it was known for being very controversial because it received backlash from the people of the town, local police, and the KKK. And it's very depressing. It was a huge thing, the civil rights movement, but it was a great, great story. Gene Hackman and William Dafoe, they work off each other very well. This is one of Dafoe's earliest roles. I think he did this right after Platoon, so he was still a relatively young talent, and Gene Hackman had been around forever, so, he was already a pioneer in the acting game. It's really engaging, and, at the time, I wasn't really a fan of these historical true stories because I always thought, oh, they're going to be slow, they're going to be long, they're going to drag. However, this one was absolutely engaging from beginning to end. It was really immersive, and, to see how much we've evolved, with the civil rights movement, it's absolutely crazy. And it's sad because there's a sequence where members of the KKK they go to this black guy and they just hang him. They just hang him, and then his kid comes by and it's like, Dad, like it's fucking depressing as fuck. And it's all around just a really well balanced story and anchored by the great performances. Also, a terrific supporting performance from a relatively young Frances McDormand. It's just, if you're a history junkie, this is one you should definitely check out. It's a really heartbreaking story, but it's also really compelling. If you're a fan of like crime, espionage, thrillers, you're gonna really enjoy this movie. And not enjoy it in like a good way, but you're gonna enjoy, like, I was really engaged. So Mississippi Burns is a fantastic film based on a true story, and it's my number 5.
Yeah, I've actually never heard of it. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, no, when you mentioned it, like I started like cataloging through my head. I'm like, have I seen that one? I don't think I have. So, yeah, that sounds really fascinating, actually. It kind of, like, the way you described it almost has like a feel of like a Time to Kill, Samuel L.
Yes.
Jackson, Matthew McConaughey type of lawyer film about racial issues and whatnot. So I don't know, the way you were describing it kind of seemed like that. So yeah, I'll definitely check it out for sure. But I have nothing to comment on it because I've never seen it. So good pick. Now this one, my number 5. Last week, there was a trailer that dropped that was pretty bad, so to speak. It was one of those ones where, like, you kind of just question life. You kind of question, like, why you exist. And you also question why there's sleazeball producers out there that decide to exploit 9/11 and get away with it with Charlie fucking Sheen. Now, I don't know why they made it. I feel like everyone got hoodwinked and they're like, oh, we're going to make something that's going to honor these people, but the trailer looks like a student project and it looks awful. So I'm not really like a big fan of 9/11 films. They're very uncomfortable to watch. However, there is one that floats around in that zeitgeist that I really enjoy, that is super intense and really puts you into the situation at hand when these planes were going down, and that would be Paul Greengrass's United 93, where it focuses on the plane out of the 4 that crashed into the field, because there was one that crashed into the Pentagon and 2 that crashed into the World Trade Centers. This one crashed into the field, so it focuses on that flight and how everyone on the flight is a stranger to one another. And then everyone starts to band together to try to fight for their lives, even though they probably know it's going to end. But they do their best to kind of fight at the their last remaining minutes of just living. And it's just really kind of inspiring, heroic, very sad. But Paul Greengrass, he is used to using that kind of documentary type of filmmaking where, when he films his movies like that, whether it be the Bourne films or Captain Phillips, you feel like you're there. And the whole time in United 93, you feel like you're on that plane. You feel like you're suffocating with these people inside of this, like, airtight cabin. You just feel like everyone's heart beating. You can feel the, just everyone's breathing. It's just, because like I said, it's so claustrophobic that when you film a movie like that, you kind of feel claustrophobic as well, and you feel like you're in the moment. And even till its last final moments in the film, like, you know what's going to happen, but it's still riveting in the sense of, like, you, in the back of your mind, you hope that these people can make it out, even though you know they aren't. But the film is very well done. I think it's very underrated. It's the only 9/11 film I've ever seen. I never saw World Trade Center. I don't want to see the shit one Charlie Sheen has done, The Abomination. So that's the only one I've seen. That's the only one I approve of because it's just that good. It doesn't mistreat the people that passed away on that flight. I think Paul Greengrass really handles it with care. He never seems like he's exploitive. That's the difference between the other films and him, is that he feels like he took care of it and really kind of honored these people on the flight that actually stood up and tried to do something about it, even though they probably knew they weren't going to make it. So, United 93 is my number 5.
Yeah, that's actually my number 4.
Here we go, folks. Great segue by Chase Lee. Brian,
yes,
tell us why
good job.
United 93 is your number 4.
United 93, I've said this before, like I just brought up, I live in New Jersey, and my part of New Jersey is like less than an hour away from New York City. So when 9/11 happened, when the planes crashed into the World Trade Center, I was only 3 years old, so I was just a little boy, and I didn't know what was going on. But you could see, I remember from my parents telling me this, you could see the smoke that was plowing from the World Trade Center from my house. And it's crazy. Well, I will agree with you that most films on 9/11, I haven't seen many. I've actually only seen this and World Trade Center. Those are the only two I've seen, which ironically they both came out the same year. So they were kind of both competing for which was the better. I mean, they were both different, which was great. One was Oliver Stone, the other one was Paul Greengrass. And, at the time, Paul Greengrass, when he directed this, he was already known for directing the second Bourne movie. So, he was already a well-known filmmaker, but he wasn't as well-known when he made this. The best thing about United 93, of course, it pays tribute to the people that died, not just, on that particular plane that crashed in Pennsylvania, but also, the Pentagon and, the World Trade Center. It's shot in real time. Like this plane left Newark, which is, the airport in my state. So, so the movie took place within the course of 90 minutes, and the movie is 90 minutes, and you feel like you're there, like Chase said, for like those 90 to 100 minutes. It's insanely thrilling. It's really heartbreaking. It's very hard to watch. It's easily one of the hardest movies I've ever had to see, and it's just really well done. Paul Greengrass actually got nominated for Best Director for this. I don't know why the film didn't get nominated for Best Picture. That's the same year that The Patty came out, so would it have won? I don't know, but I wish it got more buzz. I think this film is pretty underrated. I don't think a lot of people talk about it that much whenever they talk about like disaster movies, and to me it's one of the best. And the handheld style that Paul Greengrass uses in all of his films may bug some people. However, it really does work for this because you're in a very claustrophobic setting when you're on this plane, and it works because it feels like a documentary, which is basically the case with all Paul Greengrass films, whether it be the Bourne films, Captain Phillips, or Green Zone. He utilizes that effect very, very well, and I know it bugs some people. I personally like it. I think it's very cool when Greengrass does it. Sometimes it can be annoying. In this movie, though, it really isn't because it works very well because, like I said, it feels like a documentary, feels like you're there on the plane with all those guys, and even when you're not on the plane, feels like you're still there with everybody involved. Everybody, from the control tower to the plane to the airport, you feel like you're there. You feel like you're there the entire ride, and it's all around a heroine piece of filmmaking. Truly great example of heroism brought to life. And the last 20 minutes, for people who know how this all ends up before the plane crashes, with the passengers attacking the terrorists, it feels real. It feels like you're watching a documentary, like a come to life. And United 93 is absolutely phenomenal. It's my number 4.
Yeah, listen, as much as I like the Bourne movies and Captain Phillips is pretty dope, United 93 is my favorite thing he's ever done.
It's the best thing he's ever done.
Yeah,
for sure.
it really is. Like it's it's very self-contained filmmaking, but it's really effective emotionally, and you can't deny that. Like I said, his other films are exciting, they're action-packed, and whatnot, and they have some great performances. But there's something about this one where, because Jason Bourne, he's a super spy. Captain Phillips, yeah, he's a normal day guy, but he was doing some crazy stuff. These people on the plane represented everyday people. And the fact that they stood up and tried to do something about it, that's like the best example of heroism that I've seen in film. It's just, the everyday man doing something good and trying to fix it, and it's powerful stuff, man. So now I feel bad segueing into my film. Thanks. So mine, I have a lot of depressing ones, so I decided to pick kind of a fun one. I am a huge fan of underdog stories. Whether you talk about any sport, I'm there. Baseball, football, soccer, hockey, boxing, golf. It doesn't fucking matter. I always love underdog stories. They're always the best. So I decided to go with one to where I just thought it was a complete package, and I'm a little biased because I live in the state that it's based in. It's based on the 1988 Permian High School Panthers football team as they go to the state championship. And that's always exciting because high school championships are pretty fucking intense. And that would be Friday Night Lights, the 2004 movie. Like I said, I wanted to pick a fun one just because everything else on my list is pretty depressing. But this one's very inspirational. I love Billy Bob Thornton as the coach. I think he was born to play a coach. He has that kind of rough demeanor, but also you kind of understand him, and he's also kind of got a sweeter side, and then he's got like the perfect voice for like these football speeches. It's directed by Peter Berg, who is actually notorious for doing event films, whether it be Lone Survivor or Deepwater Horizon or Patriots Day. So this was kind of like one of the earlier ones where he kind of used this kind of kind of gritty filmmaking to really kind of capture what it was like during this time as they were trying to go to the championship and whatnot. And of course, all the kids in here are really well casted. I mean, Lucas Black, Jay Hernandez, just to mention a few. They're very likable, very charming, and they represent teenagers well, because that's always been my problem with teenager or high school movies, is they always cast like upper 20s, 30-year-olds, for Christ's sake, and it's like, no, don't do that. So I really enjoyed the fact that, yes, they might have been a little older in this film, for sure, but I thought they did a good job capturing kind of like that high school, kind of like small town in Texas type of feel. And the fact that it's like a small town in Texas and they advance to, a giant ass stadium with thousands of people playing in front of them, there was something kind of cool about that, and just like so rewarding to see their progress even when they stumbled across the way. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of like any type of sports film, but I decided to go with this one just because it was one of the first ones I remember watching in high school. And I was actually in football in 2004 when it came out, so I connected it with it then. I still like it now. I like a lot of football movies, to be honest with you, but I like this one in particular just because, believe it or not, what really makes a sports movie, Brian, is the coach. It's true. And Any Given Sunday is one of my favorites, with good old Al Pacino. So it really depends on the coach that's cast, and I really do think that Billy Bob Thornton does provide that balance between aggressive and kind of sensitive, so you can kind of get where he's coming from. He really cares about them, and I think, like I said, I picked this one because, one, I do live in Texas. Two, I think it's kind of cool that a small podunk town, I shouldn't say podunk, a small town in Texas can advance that far into the state championship. Is kind of cool. So that is my number 4.
Yeah, Friday Night Lights is a very well-made film for sure. It's always cool whenever.
Sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
And also, it was so popular, it spawned a TV show. So I mean, like that just shows you right there how popular this story was back in the 80s, and it still permeates to today.
Yeah, definitely. That's another thing I was gonna say. It's cool that they spawned a TV show, and the show that did very well was on for, I think, 4 or 5 seasons. Kyle Chandler, Connie Britton. It did fairly well. Taylor Kish, I think, launched his career, launched Michael B. Jordan's career. It launched a lot. Jesse Plemons. It launched a lot of people's careers that we've all come to appreciate these actors, and we all know them for who they are, and yada yada. So yeah, it's a very well done film for sure. It's always cool whenever a movie that focuses on a small town in your state, is adapted to the big screen. I can't think of one for my state, in all honesty. If there has been one, that's great, but I can't really think of any. And hopefully there is one. If there was one made about my town, I would probably cry. I would hope that someone directs it very well and they pick the right people. And if they cast someone named Brian Suffield, then I don't know, beats me. But no, Friday Night Lights is excellent. It's fantastic for sure. Like you said, whenever you have a sports movie, you always want a good coach, and you got Billy Bob Thornton playing him, and Billy Bob Thornton's always great. So right there, that's a good sign. And it's definitely one of Peter Berg's more underappreciated films, because I think a lot of people resonate in now with his True Story Mark Wahlberg trilogy. So not that that's a bad thing, because all three of those films are solid. But yeah, Friday Night Lights is pretty fucking solid. Definitely a good pick for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this was basically like the film to kind of show people that he can handle true events very well and really kind of take care of them. Once again, going back to the Paul Greengrass thing, as long as you take care of the subject matter, it can resonate with people and not seem like it's forceful or disgusting. A disgusting tribute to the people that actually died or the people that went through this and whatnot. So, I really enjoy it. And who doesn't love a good old football movie from Texas? All right, so number 3, what do you got?
My number 3, Saving Mr. Banks.
Interesting. I'm really curious of every movie that's been based on a true story. You went with one that came out literally, what was it, 2 years ago?
4 years ago.
Or whoops, 4 years. Still, it's still fairly recent. So
it is.
I'm curious, like, why does this one resonate with you?
Well, it's because I said this when we last talked about it. I always love it whenever there's a film about a film. And for people who don't know what this is, and you probably should, this follows the making of Mary Poppins. Basically the development of Walt Disney begging P.L. Travers, the author of Mary Poppins, to give off the rights to him, because he's been begging her for 20 years to have the rights for this character to adapt it to the big screen. She's like, oh no, I don't like this, crumpets, blah blah blah, crumpets. She hates everything. She's very picky. She's very snooty and snotty. It's when we talked about this, I think you brought up a really good point, because not only does this focus on the development of Mary Poppins, it showcases what basically led P.L. Travers to writing Mary Poppins. It focuses on her as a kid, and her close relationship with her father, who's played by Colin Farrell, and probably what I consider to be his most underrated performance to date. It's an incredible performance, and I felt it should have gotten an Oscar nomination. I felt this movie should have gotten a lot of Oscar nominations, and it's a Disney movie about alcoholism, which was never expected, because Disney has done their fair share of mature films. The Pirates of the Caribbean films are definitely not for little ones, but it's PG-13, it's definitely dark. Obviously Marvel, and now they have Star Wars as well. They've made some PG movies that have mature themes, like Bridge of Terabithia, for example, but they haven't really done anything that deals with like a certain subject. And alcoholism is not a pretty thing. Alcoholism is a very serious illness. It's hard to fight off, and the whole movie itself, it really is engrossing and compelling, and it's very lighthearted, but at the same time it's very depressing. There's a lot of great heart in it. There's a lot of great comedy, but there's also a huge amount of drama. And when you look at the flashbacks, and just to see everything that went on, it's really crazy. And also, as a filmmaker, it's very hard to develop a film. You gotta write the movie, then you gotta cast it, then you gotta find crew members, then you make the movie, and then you have to edit the movie, and then you submit it, and then that's it. Then you're done. It takes a lot of work. It takes years to develop films. Like what I just said, Walt Disney has been begging P.L. Travers to get the rights for 20 years. They started developing this movie, I believe, 2 or 3 years before Mary Poppins came out. They're like, okay, so we want to do that. We want to add songs. We want Dick Van Dyke to play Bert. We want Julie Andrews as the lead. They wanted to do all this stuff. She wanted to have control of the script. She wanted recordings of like the sessions, where to be with the script, the directing, blah, 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 blah. And it was just really, really interesting because we don't really get a lot of movies about movies. And I mean, we're getting the Disaster Artist later this year, which looks fucking fantastic. And I've been hearing it's great. So all around, I kind of wanted to put at least one film that was about a film on this list because, you know, film's my passion. I'm going to school for it. Chase went to school for it. So it's a big part of our lives. And Saving Mr. Banks all around is a great movie. And John Lee Hancock is no stranger to making films based on true stories. He made The Rookie. He made The Blind Side. He made The Founder. He's no stranger to true stories. And this is probably the best thing he's done because I like everything else he's done. The Founder was The Rookie's good, and so is The Blind Side. So yeah, Saving Mr. Banks is my number 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great film. It was definitely one of my favorites from 2013. I remember walking out of that movie, I was like, man, Colin Farrell, you should probably get nominated for that, right? Nope. I still remember, Brian knows what I'm talking about, the bed scene. The fucking bed scene kills me. Every single time I watch that, I'm like, dude, that's like some great facial acting from Colin over there. So, yeah, really great film, underlying with alcoholism, but also very whimsical in the film, making a film type of aspect. It's a lot of fun to watch, but also very serious. It brings up some serious issues. Yeah, great performances from Tom Hanks and Emma Thomas. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that film quite a bit. Couldn't put it on my list. I gotta let it kind of marinate just a little bit. But then again, I'm a hypocrite because my number 3 is also from 2013. Listen, this is one of the grossest times, one of the most brutal times in American history. I hate watching films set in slavery era. I absolutely hate watching them. But as a white person, I'm sure Brian can attest to this, it is very important that we show people what has happened in our history so we don't brush it under the rug like fucking textbooks from my state. Brian, did you know this is a true thing? In Texas, they are trying to change the phrase slavery immigrant to immigrant trying to find work. Like they're trying to like bury slavery as much as they can, and it's absolutely disgusting. Listen,
it's terrible.
I don't like that part of our history, but guess what? It's a part of our history. We have to teach people this so we don't revert back to it. So films like 12 Years a Slave are very important to showcase the horrors and the disgust in humanity and what we had to go through as a human race. It's fucking appalling. But the film is really well done. Directed by Steve McQueen, who had done Hunger and Shame. One based on a hunger strike, one based on sex addiction, and now one based on slavery. Follows the story loosely that was written about by Solomon Northup, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, and he was a free African American in the North. He got captured, sent to the South, and he was 12 years as a slave, and then he eventually got freed. So even knowing at the end that he gets free and everything, it's still an emotional roller coaster. The fact that this guy is a free man, and then he's treated like dirt in the next scene, is just it's shocking. And as his like journey continues throughout going to various houses, because he doesn't just stay in one house. He goes to Benedict Cumberbatch. He first meets Paul Giamatti, who's a dick. Then he's traded off to Benedict Cumberbatch, he's a dick-ish. And then he gets traded off to Michael Fassbender, which gave one of the best performances that year because he was absolutely horrific as his second slave owner, and he would beat the shit out of him. He would rape women. Like, he was a disgusting human being. And then after 12 years, he eventually gets to go back to his family. But the the way Steve McQueen, who is a black gentleman himself, the way he handles the story, he doesn't pull any punches. He shows the gruesome nature of slavery. He shows the disgusting nature of slavery. He brings brilliant performances out of all of his actors and actresses. This one also garnered the supporting actress from Lupita Nyong'o, who's now going to be in, of course, like Black Panther and stuff. So that really kind of launched her career. Chiwetel Ejiofor really put him in the spotlight. Finally, he's been acting for years, but this was kind of like his, his movie. Michael Fassbender, absolutely brilliant as a horrific slave owner. Benedict Cumberbatch was good. Paul Giamatti was fine.
Paul Dano.
Yeah, Paul Dano was in it. Yeah, I keep forgetting about Paul Dano. And the cinematography is gorgeous. You know what's really great about the film is amongst its horrors, its contrast is beautiful, luscious, and rich cinematography. The way they capture, the cotton fields or, the forest or just, that era, it really kind of captures it. It's really colorful with the, the props and the sets and the costumes and whatnot. So it's a really well done film showcasing one of the most just absolutely appalling, parts in our history as humans in America. It's just really well done. And, oh man, I wonder, Brian, did you feel the same way when you watched it in theaters for the first time? And when he fucking comes home and like he can't say anything and he just breaks down and starts crying in front of his family who he hasn't seen in 12 fucking years. Keep that in mind. He can't say anything. He just starts crying. Like, that will kill you every single time you watch the movie. Like Chiwetel Ejiofor, my God, the kind of like somberness of that man when he goes home at the very end, it's wonderful. It's, like I said, it's a straight up horror film of human history, but it's essential for history viewing so people like the fucking governors in this goddamn state don't change slavery workers to people looking for work. That is fucked up. Don't be doing that. That's a real thing, by the way. Texas schools are trying to change that shit. They're trying to bury slavery as if it never happened. Fucking why? Jesus Christ, I hate this state so much sometimes. So, Brian, anyways, that's my number 3, 12 Years a Slave. It is especially when I saw it in theaters, and this was the same way with Birth of a Nation and Hidden Figures, I was one of the few white people. And I don't understand, like, maybe I went to an earlier show and, like, there was more white people at night, but it's also kind of appalling that many white people don't see these movies either. And I don't understand, like, I want to know more about our history. So if I want to know more about, Solomon Northrop's story or, Brian, what was the Birth of a Nation,
Nat Turner.
Yeah, Nat Turner. Maybe I want to know about Nat Turner's story. Maybe, I want to watch Amistad. Like, it's just, I want to know more about our history, and there's many different stories from many different encounters, and so I want to explore it all, even if it's like the roughest thing to sit through. I love history, even the bad stuff. So yeah, I don't understand like why, because I saw this in 2013, I saw Birth of a Nation in 2015, and just both times I was maybe one of 2 white people, and the rest were the audience was black. So it's like I don't understand, like, are white people just ashamed, which they should be? Are they just like they can't relive it, or like I don't know. Brian, can you explain that to me?
I really can't, to be honest with you. I don't know why a lot of white people don't go out of their way excuse me, to see movies like 12 Years a Slave or Birth of a Nation. And even though Birth of a Nation was just okay to me, I still it's still
was fascinating viewing. Yeah,
exactly. It's very crucial to watch because like it's an important piece of our history, and unfortunately, us white people were not good at a certain period of time. Well, there are many white people that are still not good to this day. I don't want to get into this whole argument, but I digress. With like 12 Years a Slave, it's a really hard story when I saw it in theaters, I was so speechless because I remember there were two movies that year that when I saw them, they were based on true stories. My heart just like died, and I don't know how I managed to get back up. It was this and Fruitvale Station, where I was watching both of these movies, and I just questioned.
Which, by the way, sorry to cut you off. Fruitvale Station is also based on a real event that happened in a subway with an African American gentleman and a cop shooting him, and seeing that one as well. I agree. It was devastating.
Yeah, absolutely. And 12 Years a Slave was one of the best films of 2013. It was definitely in my top 10, even though, to be honest, can't really see myself watch it. It's not a one-time watch for me because I like watching some of these movies from time to time, like maybe because I just feel so engrossed by them. And 12 Years a Slave is one of the best ones of the decade so far. It's, it deservingly won the Best Picture Oscar. Was it my pick? No, but I'm happy it won. It was very well deserving, even though it didn't win Best Director. That went to good old Mexican man Alfonso Cuarón, or Spanish man. I don't know which one he is, but it was all around just terrific and harrowing, and it's hard to watch for sure. But man, what a story that all high school should show this movie. I'm shocked that most of them didn't. I get it that it's rated R and there's some things you can't show. But, we watched Mississippi Burning. We watched Glory. We watched 1993. We watched Schindler's List in high school. So, why can't you put on this? Now, I don't know if they changed. I mean, my high school's a little different. And I've been out of high school for a year now. So, it's a little different. But 12 Years a Slave, everyone needs to watch this. This is what I call a great history lesson come to life on the screen. So yeah, great pick for sure. Just fantastic film.
Yeah, and as a white gentleman myself, and Brian is also white. If you guys don't know what we look like, and this is just kind of an off-topic thing. What is the correct term to use nowadays? Are we supposed to say black or African American? Because I get yelled at for both. So it's like I don't know which one to use. Please let me know down below which one, because I actually work with a lot of black gentlemen myself and a lot of black women, and so I'm actually a minority at work. So I have to watch myself saying these certain things, and I just don't know what's appropriate unless Brian knows over there.
Wait, what happened? I'm sorry.
Exactly. Brian's trying to brush the question under the rug because he doesn't want to answer it. So I get it. We'll move on. But please let me know down in the comments what is the correct term nowadays. I'm not being funny. I actually want to know. So all right. So let's move on to Brian's number 2. This will get interesting. We're getting into the cream of the crop, the tippy top of our list. Brian, what do you got?
The cream of the crop. That's an interesting term. That's definitely new in the Chase Lee catalog.
I don't know what I'm talking about now. I'm kind of drunk, not gonna lie, but I'm still gonna push through. By the way,
my number 2, I just brought up when we bring up these films. Schindler's List.
Okay.
Yeah. See, the reason why I put this as my number 2 is because my number 1. While the story may not be as crucial as Schindler's List, my number 1 is a film that I've seen numerous times. And Schindler's List, this is hands down probably, it's not my favorite, but it's easily the best thing that Steven Spielberg.
Stevens? Who the fuck is Steven? Who is the one that's been drinking on this podcast, sir? Good Lord, I've had a bunch of wine, and I'm feeling pretty loopy, and you're saying Steven Spielberg? Like, who the fuck is that? Good Lord. Are you okay over there?
I'm not okay. Steven Spielberg, this is hands down the best thing he's done. The best thing he's ever directed. Obviously, for people who don't know what this is, it follows Mr. Oscar Schindler, played by Liam Neeson, who was a German who happened to save the lives of over 1,000 Jews. And, I'll be honest with you guys. A lot of people consider this the hardest movie to watch. It's not easy to watch. It is very, very very painful to sit through. But I don't think it's the hardest film I've ever had to watch. I mean, that's just a biased opinion, but it's so goddamn incredible. I mean, Spielberg did a really incredible thing. First of all, this came out the same year as Jurassic Park, so you got 2 doses of Spielberg in 1 year, which is great. It's always great. He did a very heroic thing because he shot this while Jurassic Park was in post-production, and he shot this in Poland. He moved there, him and his family. This was a very depressing time for Spielberg. This movie made him severely depressed. It broke him. And you know what? If I was making a movie like this, I would be broken too. Because you want to, whenever you make a movie like Schindler's List, you want to make sure you honor the people that got killed during the Holocaust in the right way without feeling offensive. But this movie, it pulls no punches. You see what happens similar to 12 Years a Slave. No punches are pulled. You see people getting killed. You see people in the showers. You see people getting, like, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And I have Jewish blood in me. I've had some people in the Holocaust. Some of my ancestors were in the Holocaust and they got killed. And the Holocaust is the scariest thing that's ever happened, in my honest opinion. It is the scariest historical event, in my opinion. It just makes me broken. And Steven Spielberg captured this so beautifully. He shot this with handheld cameras, shot this in black and white. Felt like a documentary, similar to 1993, but this was much different. This movie's very long. It clocks in at almost 3.5 hours. You got his incredible direction, which he won the Best Director for. And he even said the Oscars, he's like, schools, show this to people. Show this to your students. This is a very important history lesson. You got to show it to them so that people know what happened during the Holocaust. Not just the basic stuff, but this story as well. He said that. If you don't believe me, look up the speech. I don't know if it was when he won Best Director or if it was when the film won Best Picture. And you got, like, 3 amazing performances headlining it. You got Liam Neeson in probably the role that launched his career. He's very despicable, but for what he did, he cries at the end. He's like, oh, I'm a German. I hate myself for what I've done. Yes, I saved all of you, but I am a bad person. Like he said, I'm a bad person. And we don't usually have people like that. He's kind of an anti-hero, Oscar Schindler, but he did an incredible thing by saving the lives of these Jews by making them work in these factories. He did a great thing. He saved all these people's lives. And sure, he said, I wish I saved more people's lives, but it's sad that you couldn't. Then you got the villainous performance, probably the scariest performance I've ever seen in film from Ralph Fiennes, who I think should have won the Oscar. He was so great as the sort of like the Hitler to this story. And just an all around despicable human being. And then Ben Kingsley's the guy that helps out make the list, and he's great. It has the best. I know this is going to shock everyone. This is the best score that John Williams has ever composed. Yes, I'm saying that over like Star Wars and Harry Potter and all the other stuff he's done. Not the best theme, but it's the best score that he's ever done. It's beautifully shot, beautifully written, just all around fantastic. Schindler's List is easily one of the best films ever made, and it is the oldest film based on a true story. Actually, no, Mississippi Burns the oldest one. Excuse me. But, after 24 years, this movie still holds up very well. I own it on Blu-ray because, to be honest, when you watch the behind the scenes, it really is interesting because, like I said, Steven Spielberg was very depressed when making this movie. He thanked his family for being there, for supporting him. He actually called, like, Robin Williams on the phone so that Robin Williams could tell him jokes. And for people who don't know, he worked with Robin Williams before with Hook. And he even, like, watched reruns of Seinfeld. So that's why, actually, and this is a fun fact, that's why in Seinfeld, there's that one episode where they're at the movie theater and they're making out during Schindler's List. So, there we go. Schindler's List, fantastic, is my number 2. The only reason why I couldn't put it as my number 1 is because my number 1 I've seen more, but Schindler's List is still all around a fantastic piece of cinema. It's one of the best films ever made, for sure.
You son of a bitch. I'm going to pass. Of course I am. All right, so my number 2, I'm going to go with one to where I actually didn't see the full movie until it was like 2 or 3 years ago when I was dating one of my exes. I watched it at her house, and it absolutely blew me away. And I could not believe, as much as I am a fan of the Finch, I could not believe I had never seen Zodiac up until this point. What a great film. Holy shit. You want to talk about an epic crime thriller? This is it. Zodiac is like the amalgamation of like what he did with Girl with a Dragon Tattoo and Gone Girl, Fight Club, and Seven. It's like all in one, and just it encompasses this nightmarish serial killer with luscious, beautiful cinematography and wonderful acting from Robert Downey Jr. and Jake Gyllenhaal, and Ruffalo's in it, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I was just like, yeah, there was 2 Avengers in it. I couldn't remember the other one. Anyways, they give wonderful performances, and it grips you from start to finish. That's what Fincher does best. Whether you look at a Fight Club or Seven or Gone Girl or Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, the guy knows how to create tension. He knows how to create suspense organically. He never does like jump scares, like these cheap ass jump scares. It's just the condition of human emotion and the events happening to where it just invests you. When you have this serial killer known as the Zodiac Killer, you want to fucking know who this is. And even at the very end, it's unsure. It's still unsure. And like that's how crafty this motherfucker was. And I think this movie is very underrated in the Fincher catalog. A lot of people don't talk about it. I think it's one of his better ones. It's an epically told film, but also each scene just feels just as important as the last. It doesn't feel like anything is wasted. I just absolutely love this film. But of course, my number one, because I passed on it, is because that gave me more of an emotional impact. This was more of a thriller, but it's still very well done, showcasing a real-life serial killer known as the Zodiac Killer back in the day, which to this day, Brian, I don't know if you've done your research on it yet or currently, but he or she is still not caught, correct?
The last time I checked, I don't think they were caught.
Yeah, so I as of this recording, I believe unless there was new research, the Zodiac Killer has still not been caught. So that just shows you the kind of like mind games that this person would play on, you know, the investigators investigating all the cases and whatnot. So, you know, this serial killer kind of makes like all the investigators go mad because they can't figure it out. And it's just a really well done film, very well directed. David Fincher, once again, one of the best for a reason. Zodiac is my number 2.
Yeah, Zodiac is pretty fucking phenomenal. It's definitely one of Fincher's more underrated films. I don't know why. I have no idea. It is very painful to watch because it is so fucking long. But oh my god, it's engaging. You know, like the Zodiac investigation, it's a very interesting topic. And there's a lot of great sequences in this movie. Some of the best in Fincher's catalog. The performances are out of this world brilliant. I love Jake Gyllenhaal to me in this movie. I appreciate the transition of his character because when the movie begins, he's just a normal cartoonist for this paper. But as the movie progresses, he becomes more obsessed with the case, and he's not even a journalist; he's a fucking cartoonist. So it's really interesting.
That's the weird thing is like he's not even supposed to be a part of the investigation, but
exactly.
Everything about the cases is so fascinating to him that he can't help himself. He's like addicted to it.
I know it's like a very disgusting thing. If you get addicted, it's not good, and this is a big like addiction to him, and it's really great. It's definitely it's not my favorite Fincher film, but it's definitely one of them for sure. I have the movie on Blue, and it's just all around terrific. It's definitely one of the best for sure, and yeah, it's thrilling. I mean, when the movie begins, I think it opens with a kill.
It does. It opens up with
it's on the cliff, right? With the couple in the car, right?
Yes.
Yes. So like when the movie begins, it's like, oh, okay, bye. All right. So it's terrific. Just fantastic pick.
Yes. So obviously people know what my number one is. Thanks to you, Brian. So what is your number one? What is the one that has tickled your fancy as one of the best movies based on a true story?
Okay, so here we go. Now, this is the only one I have on the list that focuses on a person. And here's the thing. Okay.
Well, technically,
So,
Saving Mr. Banks focuses on a person, but so does Schindler's List. So I'll give you that one as well. So
yeah. Yeah, but those are people in certain events. This is just a person, and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to try to tease my way around this without Chase figuring out immediately what it is. So I'm a fan of whenever we learn about criminals in film. It doesn't matter what they do. Kill, steal, I don't know, get accused of something. It's interesting. Now, this one guy, I'm not going to say their name, but you know it's a guy, unfortunately. This one motherfucker is one of the biggest geniuses that has ever lived on Earth. This guy did an incredible task by doing things that are not, like, if you did this now, it would be worse than it was back when he did it. It was in the 1960s. And this guy did, it's crazy because when I was watching this movie for the first time, I'm like, how the fuck did this guy get away with all this? And he did this for years. He was doing this for at least 3 to 4 years until he finally got caught and decided, hey, arrest me, blah, blah, blah. So, it's funny because the movie came out in the year 2002. It is a very underrated film from that year. A lot of people talk about it. They're like, oh, the movie's great. But I know deep down not a lot of people have seen this film because it is one of the more underrated films of the director's catalog. It stars 2 of the biggest actors we have working, not just from that time, but today. Both of them are Oscar winners. At the time, one of them was not an Oscar winner. The film is directed by an Oscar winner. My favorite film based on a true story, and Chase is going to be like, oh my fucking god, of course you would pick this. Number 1, Catch Me If You Can.
yeah, okay. Oh, okay, sure, fam. Whatever you say. Listen, I'm not going to dog on you. I mean, yeah, it's based on a true story about this con artist and whatnot, and it's a really well done film. I watched it because of Brian. Found it on a pawn store for $1. Liked it, and I own it now. So it's a good pick. I just, it's not for me. I like the depressing, dark shit. Okay?
I put a depressing film at number 2. At number 2, and I don't usually put depressing stuff up that high, but unless if all the actor or director does is depressing shit, but I put a depressing film as my number 2. So, you gotta give me some credit there, okay? So, alright. I wanted to put the film that, at this point, I'm still contemplating if this is like my legit favorite film ever made. I have seen Catch Me If You Can so many goddamn times, I can't even give you the exact amount of times I've seen this fucking movie. It's my favorite thing that Spielberg has ever done, and it's one of the more underrated films of his catalog. I have no idea why people never talk about this movie. I understand that it's not E.T., Jurassic Park, Jaws, Indiana Jones, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan. I get it. That's not, high up, but it is so different for his catalog. It's not a sci-fi. It's just a typical crime drama. It's a biopic, and it's really, really great. So Frank Abagnale Jr., he's a con artist. When he was 16 years old, he got into the art of forging checks, and he did this for years. Like I said, he did this for about 3 to 4 years before he got caught by good old Carl Hanratty, played by the brilliant Tom Hanks. Leonardo DiCaprio plays Frank Abagnale Jr., and this was at the peak of his career. At the time he was in Titanic, so everyone was like, oh, it's the pretty boy from Titanic. This movie to me showcases that that's when he started to act. He still had that pretty boy charm to him, but he was actually acting. And it was really great because this movie was actually on like less than 4 hours ago. And the scene on the plane where Carl tells Frank that his father is dead, that's real acting. Like, he actually, goes all crazy. He punches the seat. He starts crying. He locks himself in the bathroom. Catch Me If You Can is all around the entertaining film. It's really long. It's 2.5 hours, but it flies by so quick. It's so engaging, and, you gotta give Spielberg major credit for this, because this was another example of a year where we got 2 Spielberg films in one. This is Minority Report, this being the better film, in my humble opinion. I'm just amazed that this guy did it for so long and got away with it. He fucked a lot of people over. And a lot of people that actually really liked him. He impersonated as a pilot, a doctor, and a lawyer. And, you know, he fucked over so many people. So many innocent people. Some people liked him for who he was, like Amy Adams' character. You know, she was going to marry the fucking guy. And then just before they got married, this had to happen. And he just fucked them over. He fucked over Jennifer Garner in the hotel room. It's a really, really engaging story. And this all started when his parents got separated. This all started. Now, what would it be like if Frank Abagnale Jr. never did this? I don't know. What would it be like if he was still in jail today? I don't know. Because right now, he works with the FBI as a check fraud. Like, he finds out which checks are real and fake. So it's a really interesting story. And I'm always biased towards this movie. I think it's really fucking great, and I don't know why a lot of people never talk about it. I don't know why a lot of people haven't seen it. It's been around for 15 years. It still holds up to this day, in my opinion, and it's just one of Spielberg's best, in my opinion. It's not the best thing. Like I said, to me, Schindler's List is the best thing he's ever done, but this is no exception. This isn't far behind, in my opinion. I just admire what he did by adding some fun elements to it, like a 60s spy movie of sorts. And he even puts in the clip from a James Bond movie at one point, because they call Frank Abagnale Jr. the James Bond of the sky. So it's just kind of lovely. It's really charming, and it's really epic. And it's not even a blockbuster. So you gotta give credit where credit is due. Catch Me If You Can was amazing, and still is to me. And I know it's weird that I put this one as my number one, considering it's more about a person than an event, but it has a lot of true stuff, because the real Frank Abagnale did say most of this is true. Some of it is fake. Like, you can't put everything that happened in the film, like Straight Outta Compton. You couldn't put some of that stuff in the film, because then controversy would happen, but who gives a fuck? So, yeah, Catch Me If You Can is my number one.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, come on now. That's usually what you pick on most of the list. But yeah, it's a good film. It's a really great caper, little cat and mouse type of game. It's really fun to watch for sure. And Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio really sell their roles. And Leonardo DiCaprio is gonna once again play a real life person that fucks people over in a real event that happened with Wolf of Wall Street. So he's just good at playing those characters that fuck people over. So, yeah, that's wonderful. But, of course, you guys know my number one pick. It's Schindler's List. Listen, I've seen the movie 3 or 4 times, probably way more than I need to see it. But usually when people say I've never seen it, I always want to sit them down and play it in front of them and see what they think afterwards. And usually it's the same response. That was really good. I don't really want to watch it again. But that's okay, though. That means it was effective, and it really just kind of showcased you the horrors of the Holocaust. And for all those Holocaust deniers out there, go sit on a fucking, hot cactus, and I hope you get rectal cancer. Anyways, it's disrespectful. So, with Schindler's List, what makes it so great is that Steven Spielberg showcases and utilizes violence in this, realistic kind of way. That's almost kind of frightening. Like, when you see people get shot in the movie, you feel like they're actually dying. Like, these are actually people giving their lives for this film. And of course they're actors and whatnot, but it's filmed in such a kind of grounded, realistic way. It feels like these people are dying right before our eyes, which really kind of captures that extra layer of horror that you want with the movie that's based on the Holocaust. And of course, Ray Fiennes is a fucking asshole. I mean, the guy is sniping people from his roof while he's getting blowed by hookers. It's just terrible. And then of course, Liam Neeson's character is kind of the anti-hero, like Brian said. Kind of, on the fence. He's like, I don't know if I should save these people. And then, he ended up saying saving 1,000 Jews or whatever. So that's wonderful. He did what he could. And even at the very end when he's like, I wish I could save more. It's that he wanted to do it, but this is what he could manage. And of course, the cinematography is wonderful. When you add that black and white, it kind of adds that old school flavor to it. You feel like you're watching something from the actual 40s, which really adds to the experience. And of course, the red jacket scene always gets me. Good God. So performances are out of this world. The cinematography is great. The emotional impact of this movie is absolutely outstanding, and the 3.5-hour runtime breezes by. I never have had like a problem with the pacing of this film. I think it's dead on. It shows you what it needs to show, and really just puts you into this experience, kind of like the movie we're honoring, Detroit. So they both kind of have similar things, and kind of like with Dunkirk, actually, where it's about the event, it's about the experience, and to show you like what kind of happened and give you like a real sense of, you know, what went on during this whole debacle. So Schindler's List is one of the best of all time. That is the best year Spielberg has ever had, because when you have that and Jurassic Park, I mean, come on. it's definitely like I said, my favorite double header that he's ever done, period. When you have a science fiction horror film, kind of sci-fi fantasy fanfare in Jurassic Park, and then you can flip it over and do something as serious as Schindler's List. You get Best Picture, Best Director, and even Jurassic Park got Oscar for visual effects. So it's like both of those movies, you know, did pretty well at the Oscars. So that was a great year for film, and Schindler's List will always go down as one of the best ever made. It came out when I was 3 years old. That's so crazy to me. So if you guys have not seen Schindler's List, it's my favorite Spielberg film. It's Brian's second favorite based on a true story. So go check it out. We recommend it. Now, I will ask you guys this: what are some of your favorite movies based on a true story, event, people, whatever you want? Please comment down below and let me know, because I always like reading them. As far as honorable mentions go, Brian, there's just too many to list. I'm just going to say it ranges from 2011's or 2010's 127 Hours to 1970's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's a bunch in between that. I have no desire to actually read them all off because there's just so much. But yeah, did you guys know that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre actually was a real thing? And it actually didn't happen in Texas. It's based on a massacre that happened in Wisconsin. So there's a little fun fact for you. So yeah, there's a lot of like movies based on true stories out there. Like I said, not going to go over all of them, but we've had some really great ones in modern time, such as 12 Years a Slave. And whatnot. So yeah, we're just, you know, starting to kind of unearth these stories and whatnot, and really just each year there's always a couple based on a true story. Like last year was great. We had double Marky Mark with Peter Berg with Deepwater Horizon and Patriots Day. So, you know, there's always going to be a movie based on a true story or an event each year. It doesn't matter which year it is. There's always going to be one. So, Brian, I mean, do you have a honorable mentions list? I mean, there's just a lot to mention.
Oh, so many. I can't even think of like which ones to like put. Like, there's too many of them. I will say that pretty much every single one that Spielberg has directed, I will give that like an honorable mention. I'm really excited to see what he's going to do with The Papers, which comes out later this year.
He also did the Munich shootings as well.
Yes. Yes, Munich. He did. Munich definitely is a great one. Absolutely. Yeah, you brought up 127 Hours. That's good. Hotel Rwanda, Into the Wild, The Pianist, Apollo 13, Milk, Captain Phillips, The Aviator, The Conjuring. That's a pretty awesome one for sure.
Based on supernatural events that are recorded from Ed and Lorraine Warren from their experience, so that technically counts.
Yes. The Insider is pretty good with Russell Crowe and Al Pacino. Argo, and you brought up Wolf of Wall Street at one point. There's a lot. There's way too many, and yeah.
Well,
too many.
I'll let you take over dishonorable mentions because I don't. Okay, I will say this. Whenever a filmmaker takes a based on a true story and turns it into a different genre, that's when I get pissed. The more I think about Pain and Gain, it's movies like that go, that was a pretty serious, like, type of, like, crime that happened. Like, why are we making this into, like, a fun, like, bad boys romp? So it's stuff like that. Whenever a movie kind of switches genre on whatever the hell actually happened, that's the ones I don't like. I can't really think of any more right now, but they are out there. So whatever you can think of, that's probably it.
No, whenever you make a movie like Pain and Gain, and you take a very serious subject and make it to something that's funny, it's not what happens in Pain and Gain and apparently happened in real life, and it's not funny. Like, see, people like say, "Oh, The Wolf of Wall Street's a comedy." Well, The Wolf of Wall Street is not all a comedy. There are some dramatic moments in that movie, and I think the comedy vibe kind of works for Wolf of Wall Street. It doesn't work for Pain and Gain, and I'm not saying that just because Michael Bay directed it. I'm saying it because of the way that Michael Bay portrayed the characters in the movie. Like, okay, yes, he portrays them as despicable human beings. He got that right. Yes, there are just a few serious moments in Pain and Gain, but there aren't enough to utilize the true story aspect, because what happens in Pain and Gain, like, when you read about it, like, on paper, it's really heartbreaking. And the fact that they make it into, like, a comedy, like, when, Robin, who was the guy? Tony Shalhoub? It was Tony Shalhoub, right? That they rob in the movie, Pain and Gain?
Yes, Tony Shalhoub.
Yes, Tony Shalhoub. Like, they almost run the man over, and they make it into a comedy. That's not funny. I mean, if it was in a comedy movie, sure, maybe it would be funny, but it's really not funny because that actually happened in real life. So that's why the families of the victims, they got offended. So, yeah don't make movies like Pain and Gain. Don't make movies like Pain and Gain, please. And if you make a movie like Pain and Gain, make it serious and not funny. If you want to inject some comedy into it, fine, be my guest, but don't make it an all-around comedy. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, it's...
Pearl Harbor's the word. Pearl Harbor is definitely a bad one.
That's definitely offensive. I'm sure wrapping this whole conversation around the 9/11 Charlie Sheen movie will probably also be offensive. So there you fucking go. So what about you guys? Let us know some of your least favorite and your favorites out there. Brian, what are we doing next week?
Next week, Annabelle Creation comes out and hits the theater. Is a prequel to, of course, The Conjuring. But, we're going to be doing our top 5 horror films of the 21st century. So that is from 2000 to now.
That is correct. And so that means basically all the old school horror ones like The Exorcist and Shining, get the fuck out of here, because we're going to be talking about the 21st century horror films, which ones Brian and I will think will hold up into that classic status. This is going to be interesting because I'm sure we're going to have different tastes, and that's something I want you to consider, Brian, is which one do you think will actually hold up as a classic years down the road? So, like, that's what you have to put into kind of your thought process, so that's going to make it even more harder. So, more harder is not a thing, but that's okay because I've been drinking. Before we wrap up, Brian, first of all, our list, just so you guys will kind of recap. Brian, 5-1, Mississippi Burning, United 93, Saving Mr. Banks, Schindler's List, and Catch Me If You Can. Me, 5-1, United 93, Friday Night Lights, 12 Years a Slave, Zodiac, and Schindler's List. So those are our list if you wanted a recap. Brian, where can the lovely people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Film Junkie Brian and on YouTube at Brian Setfield.
Awesome, and you can find me at Real Chase Lee on Twitter, and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get up to dates when we do these things live or when we post them, whatever. It's going to be there if you subscribe. It will let you know. And of course, Brian and I both have podcasts on Sundays, so go check those out. Mine will definitely be over Detroit. So as a white male talking about that movie, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of controversy and there's going to be a lot of hate in the comments. So I can't wait. I live for this shit. So all right, so we'll see you guys next week for the best horror films of the 21st century so far. Should be a lot of fun. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. You guys are always the best. And to wrap that up, I'm Chase Lee.
And I'm Brian Sutfield.
That's fucking right. See you guys next week. Top 5 Saturdays Live, y'all. Peace out, motherfucker.